At 14:07 local time, FA-18 Super Hornets were screaming toward 3 irreplaceable Iranian aircraft at Kerman airport. The Iranians were getting ready to put these birds in the air at any moment. Both pilots, Raven 1 and Raven 2, had swung wide east to avoid everything. The desert didn't cooperate. Raven 1's radar warning receiver lit up with a tone every fighter pilot memorizes and never wants to hear. Phased array acquisition at fast pulse repetition. A TOR M1 battery inside 12 km sitting cold in the foothills with its radar off. The instant the Super Hornets crossed the horizon, it skipped the search phase entirely and went straight to fire control. No, who are you? No, can I see some ID? Just a fist already in the air before you finished walking through the door. Raven 1's hands were already moving, left to the chaff switch, right tightening on the stick. Think of the 4th missile as a telephone pole doing Mach 2.8 and pulling 28 Gs. That's 4 times what a pilot can sustain. Raven 1 hauled the stick back, pulling 6 Gs as the horizon whipped vertical. Behind him, the AL-47 dispenser cycled chaff, aluminum fibers blooming into a radar ghost. The ALQ-214 jammer pumped false data, pointing the missile at empty air. Raven 2 broke opposite, forcing the battery to pick one target. In that critical moment of decision, they picked Raven 1. But geometry shift and jammer noise moved the jet out of the seeker's prediction cone. Warhead detonated behind and below, close enough to tickle the airframe. Inside the TOR M1, the battery commander slammed the master switch and the scope went dark. 2 weeks ago, the commander would have fired again, but 11 days of watching America turn Iran into a parking lot gave him second thoughts. The TOR didn't need a hit, it needed 45 seconds. A 6G break threw both jets south of the route, straight into a mountain pass where an Iranian radar operator sat scanning. He'd set up in terrain the coalition hadn't prioritized, a move of either exceptional initiative or paranoia. In this military, they were indistinguishable. He picked up the handset, 2 returns heading northeast, medium altitude, moving with purpose. That phone call, routed through a landline, reached the garrison before the Ravens could react. Meanwhile, Raven 2 discovered what those 6Gs had done to his targeting pod. The ATFLIR's gimbal uses fiber optic gyroscopes to hold the infrared image steady at 500 knots. But 15 seconds at 6Gs had precessed those gyroscopes off their reference. The image now jittered across the desert like reading a street sign through a bus windshield. He cycled the pod to standby. The jitter persisted. Maintenance back on the Lincoln would later confirm the gyroscopes hadn't just precessed. The 6G snap had microfractured the fiber optic coupler feeding the reference laser. The pod wasn't drifting, it was guessing. Below 15,000 FT, the drift couldn't lose the target, but it put him in the IRGC's kill zone. It was about to force him into the altitude band where the ground defenses work best. They were pushed off route and straight into a surveillance radar. At Kerman, a ground controller grabbed a field telephone and sprinted across the apron. Fighters inbound. Fuel trucks lurched clear within seconds. A response time that would have impressed any Air Force after 11 days of precision strikes. Inside the cockpit, the engineer threw switches. The 5-minute spool sequence had begun. Each of the 4 Solovia turbofans requires roughly 90 seconds to start. If everything went right, the heavy transport would be taxiing before the Americans arrived. 8,000 meters away at Creech AFB, a Reaper operator watched the scramble in real time. When the drone crossed bingo fuel, the mission wasn't done, but the gas was. The operator swept the apron one last time and turned south. The screen went to empty desert. The replacement was 30 minutes out. For the next 5 minutes, nobody could see the airfield. The crew raced through their checklist with nobody watching. But here's what the Americans couldn't see during those 5 blind minutes. The II-76 wasn't just spooling engines to evacuate. Ground crews were loading crates through the rear cargo ramp. Long olive green cases that didn't match any standard supply manifest. Whatever the IRGC was trying to fly out of Kerman was worth more than the aircraft itself. At Al Udeid, the CAOC held the Ravens in orbit. No ISR coverage meant no weapons release authorization. Commanders 900 miles away followed procedure where the coffee was hot and risks were theoretical. But it made no sense to a cockpit burning fuel it couldn't spare. At Kerman, those same 5 minutes bought everything the garrison needed. Gun trucks rolled from the motor pool and a MANPADS team stood ready on the maintenance hangar roof. The Misagh-2 is Iran's copy of the Chinese QW-1, which was China's copy of the Russian Igla. Like any third-gen knockoff, it works just well enough to ruin your afternoon. The Reaper checked in at 23,000 feet. Its multispectral targeting system reads a license plate from 4 miles up, controlled through a 600 millisecond satellite delay. All three confirmed. APU hot on the heavy. Hold released. 16 minutes to target. The 5-minute head start, courtesy of the Tor M1, was waiting at the other end. Raven 1 swept the airfield with its thermal telescope pod. It lets the pilot study a target from far enough away that the people on the ground can't shoot back. Lead's pod produced a clean, stable image, the exact kind of picture you design a targeting system to produce. 2 pickup trucks with Zu-23 anti-aircraft guns sat at opposite ends of the runway. The Zu-23 fires 1,000 rounds per minute. No radar, no signature. It's the AK-47 of anti-aircraft guns. The gunner just lets it rip and hopes for the best. On the hangar roof, the MANPAD operator was clearly visible on the Reaper's infrared feed. Intercept geometry was already set. The defense equation: come in high and GPS jamming ruins your bomb. Come in low and the ground defenses ruin your day. GBU-38s hit within 5 meters clean. But under Chinese jamming, that circle swells to 25 meters, a massive drop in precision. Against a building, it's a hit. Against a parked plane, just a crater on the taxiway. Precision is the ultimate equation. Accuracy demanded a lower release, cutting flight time from 90 seconds to 30, but lower meant entering the Zu-23 threat envelope. Raven 1 rolled in at 12,000 feet, 30-degree dive locked. Suddenly, the south Zu-23 opened up. No warning, just orange-white tracers. The gunner walked his lead with the calm of an 11-day veteran. At 1,600 rounds per minute, he just needed to be close. Raven 1 broke hard into afterburner, the mission scrubbed by a weapon that cost less than a used car. On the rooftop, the MANPAD operator read the brake, already 2 moves ahead. Raven 2 couldn't wait. The IL-76 was spooling. Another 60 seconds on the Zu-23 problem, and the target would be gone. Raven 1 clawed back for altitude while his wingman committed on the transport alone. 10,000 feet, forced by a targeting pod broken since the foothills. Crosshairs settled, and he mashed the pickle during a flicker of stability. The entire solution riding on a pod that hadn't worked right since takeoff. GPU-38 away, fins snapping as the GPS reached for the constellation. The signal was contested. The jamming didn't hit like a wall, it crept in. Noise flooded the frequency, burying the signal the bomb was steering by. Fins corrected. The jamming shoved, fins countered by a fraction of a degree. A wager between the satellite signal and the noise trying to bury it. An invisible boxing match through 12,000 feet of contested spectrum. At 8,000 feet, resonance hit. The solution jumped sideways by 11 meters. Fins slammed to max deflection, overcorrected, and then found center. Not through stillness, but through constant adjustment at every axis. A tightrope walk where the wire never stops moving, and someone keeps flicking the lights on and off. From the rooftop, the MSA-2 launched. The operator had tracked Raven 2's descent for 15 seconds, waiting for the rear quarter aspect where both F-414 engine nozzles were fully visible. The jet's missile warning receivers caught the plume at 5 lock low. Raven 2 broke into the missile. AL-47 dispensers fired MJU-53 flares, magnesium pellets burning at 2,000 degrees. Temporary suns designed to confuse the thermal imaging. The seeker built its picture and faced a choice. The flares burnt hotter, but the aircraft presented a larger thermal signature. The brake rotated the image faster than the focal plane array could refresh. Image smeared. The missile committed to the nearest flare and detonated 100 meters behind the aircraft. The Reaper saw the impact from 20,000 FT, fuselage splitting open, details sagging sideways.